Over the past 2 years, clipping has become like a hot topic, with more plugins and more of us using them totally wrong. Some people even say that clipping is bad, but they usually master everything to -14 LUFS, so there is no reason to elaborate on them more. I want to introduce you to the method I've been using and investigating for quite a while now, and it's called Clip to Zero. Introduce is a great word here since there is a whole science behind it, but by the end of this video you will have a good idea how to use it and why it works. But first let's speedrun the basics of clipping since I have one here ready. It looks nothing like the fancy ones you used to see, but we can actually switch it to the stock rack I made to make things even easier for you to understand. Now, once I drive my kick into it with, well, the clip knob, you can see that it starts to shave off a little bit of transients, and it also introduces a little bit of saturation with this rounded curve here. That's soft clipping. Once I change to hard clipper, you can see it's way more sharper, plus it also allows you for more volume increase. Speaking of volume, yeah, it stays really low, but that's because the check presets I have here. More on them and why they are useful a little bit later. Let's quickly compare those two again. So that's with no clipping. Now I will introduce the hard clipper. And you can see we get a little square here. Now let's quickly switch to soft clipping again, and it's way more rounded. The difference is even easier to notice with a tool that has delta mode, like for example K-Clip. Delta is basically the difference between your dry and clipped signal. So now we only hear what clipper clips. Someone please count how many times I said clipper in this video and write it down in the comments. Now, once I change this hard clipper to the soft one, we actually can hear the whole kick here. Going back to hard, we can only hear a piece of it. Soft clipping takes out more with the same setting, but it gets us the saturation in exchange. You're probably used to using clipper only on your master, and it sounds a little something like this. Sure, you can get to loud levels like that, but everything starts to sound squashed and distorted. Been there, done that, and believe me, no better or expensive clipper will solve this issue, since the problem is somewhere else. Once I play you only my kick and snare, you can see that I have them really close to 0 dB line, which is totally fine, but once I will engage my tops, you can see that in some areas we are going above the 0 dB line. And it's even easier to notice once I change the summing. That's basically how our waveform looks like. And your first move would probably be to just turn down the volume of those tops, right? So let's try to do that. As for right now, I turned them down to like -4 dB, but I'm still picking, so let's go even lower. And I think that's actually the point that we could manage some things, but as you can hear, I totally lost the balance I wanted at first. Now, the more sounds I will add, the more peaks above 0 dB will be. It's not the end of the world, because we can always turn down the volume on our master, right? But when it comes down to making everything loud, your clipper or limiter would need to deal with those peaks at first, instead of focusing on the whole waveform to make things louder and violate streaming platforms even more. So the solution for that is really simple. First, let's put a clipper on my kick. I think I will go with the hard clipping option, so first I will need to check how much I need to clip. I think that's fair enough. Now let's go to the hard clip setting. Then we can actually perform the same type of clipping on our snare. Let's engage it. Yeah, I think I can turn it down a little bit. Now let's go to my tops I showed you before and use the same clipper, but this time we can actually soft clip them to add a bit more saturation to the tops. Let's focus exclusively on them. Think that will be enough. So as you can see, I already have a clipper on my drum boss as well, and as you can see here, we actually got rid of those peaks above 0 dB line, while the result doesn't sound distorted at all. I will quickly run through my whole session to perform the same little clipping for each boss, but first I need to admit something. Although my stock rack is cool for quick and easy adjustments, once we get further, we need something more detailed. So it's time for some Max for Life and plugin shoutouts, with no sponsorships behind the scenes, obviously. So on Max for Life side of things, we have Blast-Heart, which I mentioned in one of my previous videos. And the coolest thing about it is that it has a built-in compensation algorithm. So whenever I will push it, the volume doesn't change drastically, and I can actually hear if I'm doing some damage or not. Now, once I switch to the regular clipping, next, a bang for a buck, obviously K-clip. I already showed it to you, but let's just use it once again on my drum boss in this example. So what I really like about K-clip is that it also has different clipping algorithm, and the germanium one is really disgusting. But let's go back to the smooth clipping. So obviously the tilde option. At this point, I think I need to turn down the clipping, and the most important thing is that I can link in and out points and then back it off a little, and it will basically compensate for the volume change or for the drive of clipper. Another cool thing about K-clip is that it's really lightweight, so you can use it on every single track inside your session, even if you work on a calculator. Another bang for a buck, which honestly I like to use exclusively for my master chain, Newfangled Saturate. You have this detail preservation fader, which basically allows you for more transparency whenever you're clipping something. Let's just actually drive this bass. You have two different options, so what I like to do first is to set the input to the positive value of peak I have here. So in this case, let's go with 3.1. Now we are peaking at 0. Now let's drive it. And we can also activate the delta option here. As you can see, I'm still going with the route of doing a little clips. Delta checking option or volume compensation option is really crucial here, because you don't want to slap it just like that. Although it sounds cool if you aim for funk top charts. Let's just back it up a little. Yeah, to the healthy level. And the final recommendation is Goat Clip, although I wasn't quite sure about using it because it tends to be really heavy on CPU sometimes, but lately they came up with the Goat Clip track, I believe, and it's basically a lightweight option of Goat Clip, which you can also use on more of 1 or 2 tracks. Basically, I have all of my tracks clipped at this point. Let's just quickly check the levels, and I think drums are okay. Bass should be okay as well, and I can actually check it with my ultimate utility. We can actually push it a little bit up. I think we can also turn up those leads a little. So let's just use a final clipper, which is gonna be Newfangled Saturate, as I'd mentioned it already. And let's actually turn on the delta mode and push it. As you can hear, I'm aiming to catch the loudest peaks and transients. So So if you ask me, everything sounds balanced and okay without significant distortion. Now, I won't touch any of those clipper settings, but I will go to all of my tracks and actually disable the clipping I made. Let's press play and see what happens. Push it to the same amount of LUFS I had, I need to actually drive it more. Before you leave a comment under the like and subscribe button that it violates everything you learned about gain staging and headroom, then I agree, but listen. This technique is called clip to zero for a good reason, and it also should be applied to genres which need to be -7 or above when it comes down to short-term LUFS or sometimes even integrated LUFS. And this would be really hard to do with super dynamic signals with a lot of peaks. As I said before, there's much detailed guide for this whole method on YouTube made by legendary Bathymetrics. I will leave the link in the description, but the key thing you need to remember is that in order to make this whole technique work, you need to have a right balance inside your session through all of your sounds. Luckily,